Since the beginning of the year, when I came back from my holidays, I finally got to have the chance to actually read Vampire Knight Memories Volume 10. If you remember the last episode, I actually did a bit of discussion video based on the previous manga volume I did of that, which was Volume 9, and it had some quite very confusing, but yet very understandable, content as I was going along throughout the video, and I had to do some research about it. This case, it's a little bit different. This thing is a little bit more straightforward this time, now that I actually kind of understood from the last volume, and actually kind of brings up a lot more to here. So basically, in the story into this volume specifically of Vampire Knight Memories, is that everything is all pretty much well, fine, and dandy. And this time, things have definitely gotten a little bit better ever since the fall of the Emperor. Well, at least a little bit more better. But however, unfortunately, due to the death of Taro, well, technically speaking, if you remember, Taro didn't exactly die. He just basically passed away, which was like many years later, ever since the resurrection of Kaname Kuran. If you remember, watch this video right here. I'll just bring up a clip of it right now. Traveling back to the past when Kaname was around, as you would know that pretty much Taro has passed away in bed, and that's why that I was trying to stop Ren and Kaname from noticing all of that happening, because she just wanted to see Taro himself for the very last time before he passed away in bed, with I holding him in his hands. So yeah, basically in some cases, a lot of people still thought it, including Yuki, Zero, and Ren, they all thought that Taro was actually, he was gone. He passed away pretty early, though in this case, he actually never did. So only I specifically knows about the whereabouts of Taro and where he actually was, even straight if going back from Volume 9 to about Taro's passing all those years later into the present. While the peace between humans and vampires has actually finally concluded, things have finally managed to get a little bit, solid ground finally. Yuki and Zero are once again happy with each other. However, the fact that Yuki still actually needs to help Zero on trying to live, so basically she has to pretty much give her her own blood to Zero, probably like once or twice per week. Which is kind of funny. I mean, I would have thought to the point that, Zero should no longer fall into a level E ever since, like, the main anime series or, like, the original manga, for example. I feel like it's just due to the fact because, he just needs blood because, he's still basically a vampire, even though he's technically the strongest vampire hunter of them all. At least in this case, the good news is that he's not going to fall into a level E, so thank heavens for that. So that's a win for that. It is just pretty nice, just having the fact that, Zero and Yuki can finally spend some quality time together. However, with a few things, also, there was some kind of very complications between I and Ren Kuran, particularly. Well, it's even due to the fact that, technically speaking, that they can be, just regular siblings, but I had some other plans to be able to preserve her sister for when she actually needs to be able to drink her blood. So apparently she actually locks her own sister into this weird like technological coffin and putting into her hypersleep so that she could be preserved for many years or months. I don't know how long she was planning to do this, but like apparently she actually wants to preserve her so that she can keep drinking her blood or something like that along the lines. It's kind of ridiculous though to me in some senses that she still wants that kind of thing to happen. She still has that urge to, being the whole pure blood siblings trying to be together thing, which obviously I'm very well aware that a lot of people do not, they're not exactly a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that myself. I'm still trying to understand what the hell is the rule beyond that. If you remember that video theory that I talked about, quite a bit in the past. Like, why was the rule specifically amplify, the words of Kaname Kuran saying, however, if I were to be her older brother, I would have been much happier. Which, still, I do feel like I'm still at a loose end at the moment, which doesn't really tie in the knots. I still wish that, the author herself, Matsuri Hino, would actually at least get a full, proper reason to why this law of pure blood siblings was, had to become a thing. Anyways, A long time, and then by the time when, so before getting sidetracked, a long time, well then afterwards, not too long after, is that Yuki then realizes that her sister, that her daughter Ai just basically kept her sister into that coffin, and she basically doesn't want to open to her parents about the situation that she has done that, which is kind of a bit weird, and also a bit very, I guess you could say it is kind of problematic in a sense that, she just kept her sister like that just to preserve her blood so that she could just feed on her, which to be honest is really not that worth it, in my fair, honest opinion. Zero One was obviously one of the first people to try to talk her out of it, obviously, and there was like a chance that she could be able to do that. And then she actually came across a good friend of hers, which we have not seen in a long time throughout this entire series, is Seiya, which is basically one of the descendants of Ido Hanabusa. And apparently that Seiya actually does have... He's apparently Ido's nephew by the looks of things, and also this is actually the newborn daughter of the Ido family, and actually have a bit of a nice, cute, and adorable reminiscing moment together while they actually wait for Seiya to actually return. Almost on the other side of the hand, while Zero was actually trying to meet up with an old friend as well, Ido Hanabusa himself. Which in some cases, Ido actually did some really big reflections on his life, especially since back into the anime, or manga if you ever want to put it, reflecting on how much of a brat he was in Season 1. Oh yeah. Believe me, Ido, you really have been quite a brat since Season 1. I can't argue with that. That's the amazing thing about Ido as a character, is that he realizes how much of a pain in the neck he was in the main season of Season 1 of Vampire Knight. But in Season 2, he had quite a bit of character development when he had to protect Yuki from Rito Kuron, which actually was pretty good, and they pretty much kind of got along a lot better, Yuki and Ido, as just as friends along the way. And especially if you continue on going with the original manga, perhaps, then that's pretty much the exact same thing as well. I mean, it's amazing enough that Ido actually did marry Yori, and in the Memory series, which was also a crazy, incredible thing to actually comprehend. And to be fair, he has done a lot of work, and due to the fact that he's been doing the research for Kaname while being in his icy coffin, he's done amazing for himself. I gotta give him props to that, absolutely applaud you with it, and yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic. Speaking about the research that Ido has done, he has actually finally managed to make the conclusion that he is finally finished with his research, which was a massive step towards what Kaname was wanting to do for so long. Now finally Ido has the chance to finally test it, and he obviously needed Yuki's permission in order to do so, which of course, yes, she does do it, and of course they finally move on with the procedures later on after that. Now, of course, there's not going to be any results of that. I don't know how well the results of the experiment and the tests actually went through due to his research, but hopefully that does actually go well. We might actually get to see that maybe later on, probably in the final volume. Moving back to Seiya, who was just about to visit Ai, he was going to try to convince him just to be able to figure out if she can, open the coffin for Ren and just let her live a normal human life, just like how I did. I mean, it's pretty fair to say that she just did not needed to do that. However, mostly because due to the fact that Ta was actually drawing pictures of, well, herself, so that's when she basically changed her mind. And after a few years later, technically speaking, they were finally about to put that medication to the test, as Zero and Ren were actually trying to be able to turn some of the vampires back into humans, all in a day's work. And then months even that later on, Zero decided to have a little bit of a visit to someone, well, somehow unintentionally, because somehow he was being ambushed by still a load of freaking goons that pretty much still freaking worship the Emperor back in those days. So technically the thing was not exactly at peace, well, sort of. Luckily, Zero was there to be able to stop them just in time, and also managed to meet an old friend of his, or should I say, his old master, Yagari. Turns out, the one and only eye patch dude has actually finally managed to get a family of his own, which is absolutely really incredible, actually. I mean, technically speaking, I feel like at this rate, Yagari would have at least be able to have a family of his own at some point, and luckily enough, he actually has. Yaguri is actually considered, in fairness, to be at least one of the GOATs in the Vampire Knight series. He may be pretty cold and chilling at times, but man, boy, the way how he talks in the anime is pretty slick. However, not realizing the fact that back at home, Yuki was actually about to get ambushed into her own home as well. So, literally, just in the moment, while literally about to, reminiscing more about the past of when how both Zero and Yuki first met ever since episode 1 or 2, per se, in the Vampire Knight anime series, she was about to be attacked by the exact same people. And luckily enough, is that Zero managed to be able to catch up just in time just to be able to save her and stop the ambushers that were trying to be able to put an end to Yuki's life. And thank heavens that also the officers came along as well to tie them up and finally put them away. So yeah, all in all, this was actually a pretty solid, way to go at this point. But before I actually end off the video right here, actually, because you may have noticed there has not been any single mention about the present in this volume whatsoever. You know how usually that the Vampire Knight Memories manga for the last few volumes have always been switching between the past and the present. This case, this was literally all in the past. Which now leads me to believe, are we actually probably going to get, the final volume with getting scenes both from the past and present again? Or this time, it's just going to be basically filled with just the present time with Kaname, Ai, and Ren together only. Finally about to witness the chance of Yuki Kuron, Kaname's sister, to finally come from the dead. This is the moment and I've actually been waiting for, and I hope that this freaking final manga proves it. Now, I'm not gonna freaking spoil myself with anything. I can't even be bothered with the comments saying that whatever the hell the freaking hell happened with the ending just to freaking spoil me. Just don't, okay? Just don't be bothered trying to freaking spoil me with any of that nonsense. I'm not gonna bother. I'm going down blind with this. So, I expect that this final and this finale of the Vampire Knight Memories manga series is gonna come to a epic conclusion. However the heck this is, hopefully that Hatsune Miino Matsuri Hino actually cooks with this one, or is just going to be a complete flunk. I really do not know. If anyone even bothers to even try to freaking, shower me with spoiler comments, don't even bother. I want to go prepared but blind at the same time. So hopefully at time we might be able to get something very special at the very conclusion of this, and which also will be the conclusion of the entire Vampire Knight series as a whole. So hopefully you could be able to stay tuned with me on this one, because this is going to be very, very interesting. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm just going to end it off right here, right now. And hopefully that the next volume, the final volume of Vampire Knight Memories is finally going to come to a close to bring up an arousing conclusion to the overall Vampire Knight series. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notification bell to never miss a video. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may your days be mad and rad.